Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, David. Hello, Amar. Hello, everyone. Hello, Jan. My name is Timur Osmanov. I will be moderating today's session. First of all, I would like to check if everything is, if we're set to go. So just I'm going to remind you that in order to be able to hear us, you have to choose the language sign, the globe sign at the bottom of your screens. Then you will be given three options actually: off, English, Russian, or mute original audio. So because I have followed sessions on day 2 and day 1, and some of the attendees, they did experience problems with hearing. So please go to this language button and choose the language. Okay, so shall we start?
Hi, can I just ask Timur?
Yes, please.
We have Khalizan is being muted. Khalizan is in the attendee room as flame eater, so he's not in this group, so he needs to be moved across.
Exactly, yes. Olga from technical support, could you please be so kind to promote Khalizan from attendees to the panelist?
His code name is Flame Eater on the menu, not Khalizan. So his name is Flame Eater, Flame Eater. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Again, hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all our panelists and participants, because you are joining from different parts of the world. Welcome to this panel on a digital future, the transport and logistics dimension. I was moderating a CAT session 2 years ago. It was a live session which took place in Shymkent city of Kazakhstan, southern Kazakhstan. It was a pleasure. So I hope maybe next CAT will be held offline, so we could see each other, more closely. So today is day 3 of the Central Asian Trade Forum. The theme of this year's forum is post-COVID recovery through better connectivity. And we could say that the biggest disruptor to this world became COVID-19. We're still living through it. And I think we could say post-COVID, maybe in the 2 or 3 years later. So today's big picture is that many businesses have transformed their operations in response to the economic and efficiency challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. And solutions are much more than making data and processes digital. Digitalization enables the business transformation. More than just making existing data digital, digitalization embraces the ability of digital technology to collect data, establish trends, and aid better business decisions. So this session brings local and international transport and logistics professionals across the world together to discuss how big data and digital technologies are transforming trade in Central Asian region, and around the world. So we'll dive in to better understand how the rapid adoption of digital technology is reducing friction and making trade easier, smarter, faster, and more customer-centric in the midst of a disruptive global pandemic. So I'm very pleased that on this panel, I'm joined by you professionals representing all these diverse voices. So let me introduce our panelists who will be delivering mini keynote presentations. So today we will be having 3 mini keynote presentations and 3 mini keynote speakers. Keynote speaker 1, Tatiana Proskurekova, joining us from the World Bank. Tatiana, hi, well, welcome. Tatiana will be delivering a presentation on connectivity and digital's role in this. Second mini keynote speaker will be Amar Moore, my lifelong friend from India, but Amar works globally. He represents a company named Kali Logistics. And the third mini keynote presentation will be delivered by Konstantin Ausche from KPMG, Kazakhstan, Central Asia. Last year, KPMG did the extensive research into how COVID-19 has disrupted various sectors of economy, and in particular, trade, transport, and logistics. So Konstantin will be delivering a presentation on this. For our attendees, I recommend to watch the videos that were shot prior to this session. Videos are of particular interest, and I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them myself. So before we go and start, I would like to raise a few issues of housekeeping. First of all, I would like to thank our technical support team, because half an hour ago we did experience some technical issues, and they were successfully dealing with it. Second, I would like to thank our team of interpreters, and by expressing our gratitude, I would underline that we should speak maybe more slowly, just to give them an opportunity to be able to keep up with us, because we have attendees from Russian-speaking part of the world, and plus the English. So basically, this session is held in English only, but it is will be translated. Okay. Most important housekeeping things. This event is being constantly recorded. Second, simultaneous interpretation is available during the event. You just can click on the language button on the bottom of the screens and choose the language you would like to hear. All participants will be muted by default. Our panelists are not muted, but in order to make more comfortable environment, we're going to mute our audio but not video. Please keep your cameras on so we could have a more interactive discussion. But if you experience connectivity problems, or if you need to take away for a couple of minutes, please you could switch your cameras off. And for attendees, we have two chat boxes. First is chat, and whenever you experience technical issues, please chat the technical support team, and they will deal with them. And for those who would like to ask a question, we do have a Q&A box. It's second to the language box. So throughout this session, our team, headed by John, will be collecting all the questions and comments from the audience, and then passing them on to moderator and to these speakers. Okay, so our panel will today will start with a presentation by Tatiana Poskrekova from the World Bank. Tatiana, if I may, just shortly read out. Tatiana is a regional director for Central Asia World Bank. Tatiana, the World Bank's regional director, a region encompasses 5 countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. And prior to this appointment, Tatiana has served as the country manager for Romania and Hungary. Before that, she was the country manager for Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro, based in Sarajevo. Before that, she was a country manager in North Macedonia and country operation advisor for Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay during 2010-2013. So with no further ado, I would like to give floor to you, Tatiana. Warm welcome and good luck.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here. Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen. That is talking at a digital conference is always a challenge for me because I'm not really digitally very capable. Can you see my screen? Okay, fantastic. I see people nodding. Yeah. So I will be very brief. I just wanted to give a few pointers to the challenges and opportunities for connectivity, both physical and digital in Central Asia. One thing that is very important to note about Central Asia is that this region as a whole is doing very poorly on trade among itself. It's in fact one of the least connected in terms of trade of all the regional blocks that we can think of. Less than 5% of the total trade of countries is among themselves in Central Asia. Whereas if you take a bloc that is in some sense neighboring Asian bloc, ASEAN, 25% of their trade is among themselves. We did a little bit of an analysis of hypothetical maximum trade among countries, and we see that there is, you can see in this graph that the potential for increasing bilateral trade among countries is in the region is really spectacular. Now, why is it that the trade is not developing as fast as we would like? OECD did a study recently on connectivity and connectivity gaps. And you can see that Central Asia in the red over here can be compared to the least developed countries in the world in terms of its connectivity. You can understand why, because the region is quite remote and there are large infrastructure challenges. One way to measure connectivity is to see how much it costs to ship a container. And this slide, which I think you cannot properly see because I think we lost the margins in the middle, but it shows that the cost, all the Central Asian countries are here at the bottom, and it shows how much it costs to ship a container from Central Asia to Shanghai or to Rotterdam. And in both of these cases, the cost becomes prohibitively expensive. Why? Again, the region is remote, over 3,000 kilometers and 5 border crossings separate Central Asia from the closest deep water ports. But that's not the entire issue. In distance, of course, matters, and infrastructure connectivity matters, but we estimate that at least 50% of overall traffic cost is because of the border crossing costs. Again, we did a study which talks about the efficiency of border crossing points, and we estimate that even though you can improve infrastructure and travel faster to get to the border, you lose all that time, all that improvement by sitting at the border. And therefore, connectivity has two sides to it. Infrastructure, of course, continues to need to be developed, but there are also things which are quick wins, things that can be improved given the existing infrastructure. And in fact, infrastructure investments without improvement on kind of intangible connectivity measures also doesn't make a lot of sense. So this is the graph that shows exactly what I've been talking about, that investments in infrastructure over time, which is the upper graph, show consistent improvement in the speed of crossing the roads in Central Asia. But if you look at the total time spent on transit, it really hasn't improved very much, because whatever has been gained through improvements in infrastructure has been lost at the border. Now, one of the things that we can do about this is to improve digital connectivity. Here again, we see that reduction in international trade costs can be achieved through improvement in digital connectivity. And this is, I think, the way of the future. So investing in better digital connectivity and removing intangible barriers for border crossing, harmonizing regulations among countries is something that is definitely a way of the future. Now, when we talk about better e-trade, we say that regulation plays a central role in building foundation of digital markets. It can provide the legal tools necessary to remote contracts, clarifying the rights and obligations of the multiple actors involved in the digital transactions, and establish a framework that promotes consumer trust in digital markets. However, some regulations are in fact creating additional barriers, and we see that the picture is very mixed here. So it's not clear that trend in improving regulation goes in the direction of reducing e-barriers. Often countries institute barriers either intentionally or unintentionally. They create additional barriers for electronic trade. Now, again, even in the digital sphere, infrastructure also matters. If you look at this graph shows how long it takes to download an HD movie in different countries. And yes, of course, in countries like Liechtenstein and Singapore, it's less than 10 minutes. But even in Romania, it takes a few minutes, whereas in Tajikistan, it takes 11 hours to download a movie. That tells you that the physical capacity of the internet can also create an important barrier. And it is very important to invest in overcoming these barriers. Now, what we see, and I've just come back from Tajikistan, actually having these discussions with the government, what we see is that infrastructure goes hand in hand also with regulations. When you have monopoly state-owned enterprises running the sector, it is very difficult for other players to enter. There is no incentive to invest in this additional infrastructure for connectivity. So certainly there are many policy measures as well as physical investments that are needed in order to promote digital connectivity in the region. Now, the World Bank is working in all of these areas. We are focusing very much on increasing private investment and competition, both in physical and in digital connectivity. We are focusing on improving access, affordability, and security of access to the internet. And we're also focusing on modernizing sector governance. We have a number of investments. If we talk about transport, we have a CARS project, which I think is very well named, Central Asia Road Links program, which is a regional program of investment in the transport infrastructure, but also looking not just at connectivity in physical terms, but also to help countries think about non-physical barriers to connectivity, as we talked about border crossing. We're also looking at the digital connectivity. We are developing a regional program called Digital CASA, and we focus at this time, we focus on creating foundations in all of the participating countries to bring them to a level where they can enter a regional internet market. And of course, we provide a lot of analytical support. We do a lot of analysis trying to also provide inputs into government's policy making. And we carry out policy dialogue in all of our countries. Because as I said in the beginning, better connectivity and better trade among these countries and for Central Asia with the rest of the world holds the tremendous potential for economic growth of this region and for improving the welfare of its citizens. So this is why this agenda is really crucial to the World Bank program in Central Asia. So these were a few quick remarks, and thank you very much for your attention. Now I need to figure out how to stop to share.
Wow, Tatiana, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We know how busy you are, and we really appreciate coming on with your presentation and giving a strategic, aerial or even space view on the landscape of Central Asia. From my side, I can only add, I'm the specialist in strategic logistics, and I can assure you that we do have problems because most probably the first problem is with the mindset of Central Asian countries, because we do not feel ourselves as the one region. We still tend to think that we are just separate countries, and we need someone to take us together and say, guys, you are one region. You have to build everything, together. And with the support of the United States, we have this platform. It's called C5+1, where we are brought together as a single region. And Tatiana, thank you very much again. So your presentation will be available for download by the attendees, right? Correct? Tatiana, thanks very much. And you have touched upon in your presentation very important things such as border crossing points, BCPs, digitalization, e-trade, and our next speaker, Amar, he will be talking more about the digital corridors. As Amar said in his video, he's the CEO, Chief Entertainment Officer of Kali Logistics. And yes, Amar, you have a very entertaining video. And I know of your work. You're helping countries, regions to build digital corridors with the help of your company, with help of your product. I know that there was a built first digital corridor between the United States and between India for pharmaceuticals. Is that correct? Yes,
Yeah.
Amar. So I'd like to thank you for joining this forum, and I give the floor to you.
Yeah.
Please.
So again, thank you so much, Timur, and very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you, Central Asia Trade Forum, for having me here. Let me just share my screen. I have a habit of speaking too much, so Timur, just pat me if I'm I'm just going beyond my time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Can you see my screen? Thanks. Okay. So I will be talking about, the role of community platforms, okay, or digital cargo community platforms, which act as trade facilitation tools, right? Just a brief introduction. I'm the domain co-coordinator for cross-border management domain at the UNEC, UNC FACT. I represent technology on the board of the International Air Cargo Association, and also, chaired the Asia Pacific chapter of International Port Community Systems Association, which is headquartered in UK, and work with several governments on improving the ease of doing business. Now, coming to the subject of digitization, right? And, talking about, how can digitization help trade? I mean, we saw in the previous presentation that there's very little inter-regional trade that is happening in Central Asia. And I'll probably give some examples of how technology has improved trade. I mean, it's not just efficiency, but how technology has also helped in growing trade. And that is something that, we will discuss as we move forward. But most important, I mean, over 170 countries have ratified the World Trade Organization's trade facilitation agreement, and World Bank very generously is helping a lot of countries in meeting the requirements of this trade facilitation agreements. But what is this trade facilitation? Trade facilitation is all about removing the tariff and non-tariff barriers to trade, right? And when we talk about non-tariff barriers, we all understand. But when we talk about non-tariff barriers to trade, what is it that we are talking about? Again, we saw in the previous presentation, procedural bottlenecks, right? I mean, there are so many quick win possibilities at border checkposts, as we heard in the previous presentation. So procedural bottlenecks due to manual documentation and paper intensive operations. And I usually like to, substantiate this with some statistics. So an average air cargo shipment, and I'm talking about the fastest mode of transport, an average air cargo shipment is accompanied by 30 types of documents, 124 copies of paper. And what's the funny part? The funny part is most of the data on these 124 copies of paper is the same. Shipper name and address, consignee name and address, number of packages, weight, volume, so on and so forth, right? However, we still have so many documents. An average ocean cargo shipment, 41 types of documents, 200 plus copies of paper, right? And, this is the situation everywhere. And the reason for that is because in a supply chain, there are so many stakeholders that are involved. And over a period of time, this documentation got created. So let me again quote another example from the air cargo. When the first air cargo shipment actually moved, it moved with just one document, and that was sufficient. And over a period of time, this whole bureaucracy or documentation got built up around this, right? Now, that's number one. Secondly, 85% of the air cargo actually stays on ground. I mean, air cargo stays on ground for 85% of the time, and only 15% of the time it's either moving on a plane or on a truck. So these are the inefficiencies that we are talking about. And in the ocean cargo, all of us know, whether it is ocean, whether it is road or rail, relatively slower modes of transport. So, clearly there's so much to improve if we could improve these stoppage points, right? Now, high truck congestion at airports and ports due to manual operations. Again, let me just explain this to you. Why does truck congestion happen anywhere, whether it is land border, whether it is a rail container depot, or whether it is an airport or a port? There are first principles of congestion, and COVID actually necessitates that we, these first 2 points that I'm mentioning, because, COVID-19 stays on paper for up to 72 hours. So if you have multitude of papers still being handled, you are actually fostering spread of COVID. So you need to reduce paper. Second is social distancing and reducing congestion, right? Now, first principles of congestion are when the entity where all these trucks are going in bunches, at a certain period in time, when they don't know what is coming in when and what kind of cargo is being brought, obviously, they cannot plan their operations. And when they cannot plan their operations, you will have, congestion, because they don't have resources to handle it. So advanced information at the border checkpost, at the airports, at the ports is the key to removing congestion. Second is transparency. Uh, Trucks for whom the cargo is not even ready for pickup or delivery also go and stand up in the queue, and that causes congestion, right? So if you could bring in transparency, the truck drivers or the truck owners could know when the cargo is ready, and then they can send their trucks to pick up the cargo or drop off the cargo. You can actually reduce that. And the third one, which we discussed in the last presentation, is the paperwork. The paperwork at border checkpost, on the rail mode of transport, air mode of transport, port mode of transport, happens at these, at these bottleneck points, which are the airports or ports. And today we have technology where a lot of this could happen before the cargo reaches these congestion points. And if that paperwork could be done, the cargo can move much faster, because typically a truck driver stops, goes to documentation counter, spends 10 minutes there. Within that 10 minutes, you have 10 trucks lining up behind. So if we could address, and this is not rocket science, if we could address some of these issues, these non-tariff barriers to trade can, go down significantly. And related to that is this whole issue of, security and compliance. Most of these checkpoints don't know what is coming in the trucks. They don't know that in advance until the trucks actually arrive. Now, airports are multi-billion-dollar assets. There are so many aircraft standing there, and so are the ports and other facilities. So it is very important from a security perspective to have this advanced information. And finally, lack of harmonized processes. This is something that always causes congestion. So United Nations recommendation 33 for single window, it lays out a framework on how using technology you can facilitate trade, right? And the first step is obviously creating paperless customs. So if your customs is moved to a paperless manner, that's the first win that you achieve. Then the next one is creating single windows. So get other regulators which are working in cohorts with customs. If you can have a single submission portal for them, if you can create a single window, then you have the next layer of trade facilitation, digital trade facilitation addressed. And I'm going to talk about the third layer, because a lot of Central Asian countries, I mean, I know Kazakhstan, I know Tajikistan, the first two steps are taken where you have the regulatory single windows in place, or customs automated to a great extent. So now is the third stage where we're talking about setting up port community systems. So port community systems, port is a generic word. It may mean a rail port, a land port, an airport, or a seaport. I know in our region, in Central Asia, we're talking about, the first three ports that I just mentioned. But if you can create a common platform for these different stakeholders, because most of the paper contains the same data, and if you have a common technology platform where this data could be exchanged digitally, you eliminate a lot of unnecessary paperwork. And when that paperwork is eliminated, a paper is not just a paper, as Timur also mentioned. A paper is an instrument for delay, in some cases corruption, in some cases lack of transparency. So port community information exchange is the next logical step to connect the trade with the regulators, and have third stage of single window. Fourth one is where you can get all the banks, all the importers, exporters, insurance companies, everyone on board, and have a national level e-logistics platform. And then the last one is where you have a regional information exchange or a regional platform where you have multiple single windows of countries connected with each other. Not just that, as Timur mentioned, we also create digital corridors. So if you want to grow trade with a particular country, you create digital infrastructure to facilitate the trade, so that shipment statuses, shipment data, anything that hinders trade is exchanged digitally, and that can help you grow trade or move the trade faster, through those lanes or corridors, right? So this is the framework. I think in Central Asia, most countries are either in stage 1 or stage 2, but it is time to do this stage 3, and stage 3 will come with stage 4, because today's community platforms do come up with features for banks and insurance companies and freight forwarders and so on, right? So I'll just, I know I just have 3-4 minutes left. So I'll very quickly, give a view on, what are these community platforms. So let me take an example of an air cargo community platform, or an airport cargo community platform. And for Central Asia, there's tremendous potential to grow air cargo trade by connecting your airports to other regional airports, which are large hubs. You can provide those gateways, which are much faster, and that can really help you grow trade exponentially. I very firmly believe in that, and I've discussed this with Timur several times, right? So what is an air cargo community platform? In the absence of any platform like that, you see on the left-hand side, this is the way business works. These are different stakeholders. They're exchanging different documents between each other and between the terminal operators. So it's a mess, of documentation flow, right? Or information flow. But when you put together, when an airport, which is essentially a body where everyone congregates for sending an air cargo, and it could be a land port, it could be a rail port, when they put together a digital infrastructure where information that's created by one party can be reused by the other party in the supply chain, then you eliminate unnecessary documentation. Legal documentation may still stay because it requires changes in law, but unnecessary documentation that hinders trade today can be easily eliminated, and cargo can move much faster. So it is essentially an electronic platform that facilitates digital interaction between different air cargo stakeholders like the importers, exporters, forwarders, customs brokers, carriers, so on and so forth. So I'll just very quickly go to the benefits of this platform, and we'll discuss this in detail during the panel discussion. Number one, commercial benefits. If you have platforms like this, you attract more freighter airlines, more passenger airlines that carry freight, so on and so forth, right? I mean, I know of one airport where cargo was leaking to other regions, and they put together this platform. Then they understood, who are their major customers in terms of importers, exporters. They just recruited a few young people to take care of these top 5 customers and promised them that if they bring cargo to that particular airport, the cargo will be cleared in 3.5 hours. You know what happened? Within 6 months, these importers, exporters redirected cargo from all other airports into this airport. The cargo volume grew, the number of freight forwarders grew, and the revenues of the community grew, and the jobs got created, right? So you essentially have commercial benefits. You can grow business. It's a great marketing tool for attracting more cargo. It's a great tool for understanding the nature of the commodities and the kind of infrastructure that you need, whether it is at the airport or, as I said, it could be at the border checkposts or at any other port, right? And carbon footprint, this is amazing. We reduce just 6 copies of paper per shipment at an airport, and that tantamounted to reducing 6.8 million copies per annum for that airport. And you know what it means in terms of sustainability? It means 15 to 1800 trees saved per annum per airport. Imagine if more airports do that, you know, what could happen to sustainability, you know, and with trucks stopping for less time, burning less fuel, you know, the carbon footprint is, going to get even better. So these are, you know, some of the benefits. There are deep tech interventions. We'll talk about this during the panel. But you can use, you know, Internet of Things for pharma temperature tracking, for managing truck queues. You can use artificial intelligence, for managing slot docks at the warehouses. You can use blockchain to develop these digital corridors that we, you know, discussed some time back. And then you can have drones, you know, for warehouse inventory tracking, so on and so forth, right? And most of these things could be available on cloud. So this is about the digitization. This is the way to go. And digitization, as I said, will help us grow trade. Thank you so much for your patient listening and time. And, you know, looking forward to having more detailed discussions during the panel.
Thank you so much, dear Amar. Thanks so much. It was a very interesting presentation. I teach logistics at the local university in Almaty. So at my first class, I usually tell my students that, the very existence of the Silk Road and the very existence of the, monopolistic position of Kazakhstan is thanks to India. You know why? Because 140 million years ago, India was part of Gondwana, which included Australia, South America, Africa, and Madagascar. And 50 million years ago, India started to drift away from Gondwana and crashed into Asia at the speed of 20 centimeters approximately a year. Now it has slowed, it's just 4 centimeters a year, but thanks to the crash itself, we have Himalayas and all other mountains in this region. So that's why everything you have to take from China and bring to Europe or Russia lies through Kazakhstan. So this is part of your responsibility now to help us to build, digital corridors in Central Asia, Amar.
Absolutely.
So, and we will take no for an answer.
No, it's our passion, to build corridors, digital corridors and digital communities. So absolutely, it's a responsibility.
Thank you so much, Amar. Thank you so much. We'll be coming back to the digital corridors during our Q&A session. I would like to give the floor to Konstantin from KPMG. Konstantin, please be mindful of time. Actually, you've got approximately 5 to 7 minutes. Thanks so much, Konstantin. Please.
Yes, thank you, Timur. Yeah, let me share my screen. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I don't know what time of the day you're in. Here it is. I believe it should be shown now. Yeah. Well, I call myself digitally capable, but still I am struggled with digital presentation, whether I'm here well, whether the screen is seen well, and so on. Okay, let's start my presentation, as Timur previously described briefly. Is about trends on the Central Asian market, those trends and insights that we got from our recent studies on the market. And actually, it was the study for overall market of the Central Asia, not exactly for transport and logistics. And this is why I would like to start with some trends from our global studies and thought leadership reports. I believe that I will have something in common with those thoughts, ideas, and insights from previous speakers. But nevertheless, let's start. Yeah. First of all, I would like to add some points regarding customer centricity. Previous speakers already said about this, that it is one of the most important topic of digital agenda for all topics, actually for all sectors. and not surprisingly that for logistics sector as well. What we mean by customer centricity is logistics is actually three basic topics like making personalized offerings, personalized services, then usage of new channels, new interaction channels with customers, with partners, such as even IoT platforms, yeah. And then the final one is a deep customer relationship that should go continuously, that should provide deep contact with customers and partners throughout different platforms, throughout the integration of platforms and so on. And here we see that it can be looked simple in words, but actually in logistics sectors, the companies say about many barriers on building such customer centricity, such customer experience improvement programs. And they meet problems in all core aspects of the business, starting from strategy alignment, where we have more complaints from transport and logistics sector in comparison with, for example, financial sector or telco sector. In logistics sector, we see that top managers or managers often struggled with how to build the strategy, how to engage those customer experience differentiators in their strategies. Then in terms of business models, again, we see a number of examples in the market of changing the business models, like banks, telco offering services from each other here, but there are no such great amount of examples on changing business models for logistics and transport companies, especially on Central Asian market. Then for people and process management, it's actually a common topic for every sector: lack of talents, lack of qualified staff, lack of alignment with third-party partners and requirements. Then in terms of security and compliance concerns, maybe the logistics sector can be not so regulated in particular countries, but the issue is that logistics sector is working with all other sectors that can be regulated very deeply, yeah? that can have deep requirements on how to transmit, storage both some products and as well as some data. And this and logistics sector actually has logistic companies have access to a great amount of data. And these concerns about data privacy, data confidentiality protection is a hot topic for top managers of key players in the sector. And for technology and data concerns, here the major problem is for now there is no something like a golden rule, golden standard to how to build different logistic systems, warehouse management systems, and those the companies from logistics sector, transport companies and their customers use a great variety of different systems, including in-house developments, and it could be quite difficult to build some solutions to integrate with them for key players. So let's move to our market, to Central Asia. Here, as Timur said, we did one study where we discussed with companies on how COVID impacted the economy. And there, yes, we saw that the impact was one of the biggest exactly for transport companies, is not so much for logistic companies, but mainly for transport and especially avia companies. And then we did, and I think the reasons of this conclusion are evident. About this what due to all these restrictions on the movements. And another study that we did was about how companies changed their mindset, what barriers they see in implementation in different digital topics, different digital trends. This study was actually conducted after the quite similar study of our global colleagues. We used pretty similar questions, but we did pretty different answers. Surprisingly, these answers were different even within the region. We have Kazakhstan that had some answers, some thoughts in common with their global peers, and we had Central Asian countries where respondents answered completely different. They ranged, for example, for key barriers for investing in new technologies, they ranged possible answers in a completely different way than in Kazakhstan. But what was in common is that the key barrier for all the participants, for all the markets, is a lack of talents. And it's one of the top barrier mentioned by global companies as well. Then we also saw such barriers like resistance, like corporate culture, which includes resistance to everything new. We also saw that, for example, such a topic as lack of budget was important for Uzbekistan, for Tajikistan, for Kyrgyzstan, but was seldomly mentioned by Kazakh companies. We also saw that cyber and data privacy risks were mentioned by Kazakhstani companies, but not mentioned by other countries. And here, the interesting thing is that the companies said that they almost did not experience serious attacks and incidents, but they are afraid of them, and they are afraid that such attacks can take place in the nearest future. Another question was to mention top priorities for technological investments to range such things like artificial intelligence, data warehouse, and so on. And here again, we see the difference between participants from different parts of the world. If globally, global companies, international companies are now focused on intelligent automation, on such things as low-code, no-code platforms, BPM, robotics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. For Kazakhstan, it was more about data architecture enhancement, data warehousing, implementation of different data analytics systems. And while for other Central Asian countries, the major point was to invest in renewal of IT infrastructure, of such basic things like server rooms, server room equipment, and so on, data centers and so on. And also basic systems like ERP, CRM, and different HR systems. Just to sum up, I would like to also mention that actually all these digital trends can find their usage for logistics sectors. Yeah, and if we consider such important let's say metrics like performance, performance actually can be split for two subdomains, like effortless decision making and frictionless processes. And here we separated different trends so that could be play a major role for these two domains. And here we see that everything should be noted in digital roadmap for logistic operators, like cybersecurity, data analytics, Internet of Things, of course, track and trace and serialization, which is a hot topic for logistics sector in Central Asia now. And then additive manufacturing, blockchain, intelligent automation, mobility, and robotics. Well, this was briefly trends findings from our studies, and maybe I will be able to answer some deeper questions.
Yeah, Konstantin, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks very much for this very insightful presentation. Can I ask a question? The report will be also available for the download, right? I mean, the KPMG report probably at the KPMG webpage.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I'll send it to you or to John. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so now I would like to start the questions and themes for the panel. And I would like to start with Jan Steenberg. Jan Steenberg is the head of Europe and APAC region at Tata Consultancy Services Supply Chain Practice. Jan and John have shot a video. I ask everyone to look at the video, to watch the video about Jan. Jan is a highly experienced supply chain executive with more than 25 years end-to-end international supply chain experience in pharmaceuticals, FMCG, CPG, high-tech, and steel manufacturing. His current work focuses predominantly on large-scale transformation programs utilizing the latest technology, such as blockchain, AI, and process automation in supply chain. Jan, we have a question here for you. I have watched your video, and Amar said in his video that logistics is probably the last dark continent for technology. And as a logistician, I can also confirm that yes, logistics has been a little bit slow in adopting, new technologies. Nevertheless, this is the process. And in your view, from your experience, where have you seen the biggest advances in the last few years in digitalization in logistics, please?
Very good question, and obviously there isn't, I think, a simple answer to it, but there is obviously an answer. Logistics, which is all about sort of the physical movement of products, either transportation, warehousing, storage, and so on, have actually seen quite a sort of revival in the last few years. A number of companies have implemented very advanced transport management systems and equally advanced warehouse management systems. We have a number of software vendors out there who really put a lot of effort and resources into developing solutions that are more up to date. And I'm not just talking about the sort of big established vendors that we all come across all the time, but there are a number of new startups as well who've really been clever about these particular areas. So there's a great movement in that particular space. The other thing that's happening, of course, is a number of the digital technologies are being applied in the logistics area. So, for example, blockchain, there is now a blockchain solution for freight management, which is a bit of I guess, a joint venture between one of the big freight forwarders and one of the big consulting organizations. I'm not going to name any names, but it's already happening, and they are transacting millions of transactions every day using blockchain. And of course, one of the key advantages of sort of tapping into what is slowly becoming, I think, standards in industry that way is that you don't have to come up with it yourself. You can just buy into it. So those are certainly trends that are happening. So track and trace, the use of IoT devices to help provide the information required for the systems to operate, visibility, control towers, etc., are becoming hugely popular. People want to know what's going on. If they can't get their products, then they want to know where they are and when they're likely to arrive. So that whole area of visibility is becoming more and more prevalent. And likewise, I think we're all used to having sort of smart devices with information at our fingertips. And a lot of this information is now truly mobile, anywhere, anytime, real time. So you can check your logistics on your smartphone, on your laptop, or on a tablet if you want. That's another trend that's happening. So everything is being appified, as some people call it. Those would be some of the highlights I would mention. There are probably a few others, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Amar also has mentioned in his video that drones could be used for warehousing, for invent, right? And Amar,
Yes.
could you please tell us about more of robotics, automation, AI applications?
Absolutely. So, so Timur, to your question of, what's happening, clearly, as Jan said, a lot of freight management system, TMS, warehouse management systems, a lot of stakeholders are automating their operations. But apart from that, there are clearly a couple of things that we see as a trend, right? Visibility, one of the biggest requirements, and now a lot of electronic messaging or API integration that is growing. Second, making technology affordable, or I call it as a democratization of technology, right? Earlier only the very large players could invest millions of dollars into technology to create that technology, but over last 6-7 years we've seen a lot of democratization of technology. And why does that happen? Because you have software as a service. You can now have softwares that are available on the cloud, and even if you're a small mom and pop shop, you can just register, pay, and start using almost the same technology that somebody would have developed, spending hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So that in a sense is democratization of technology. Again, people hitherto did not have the capability to invest into electronic data interchanges, but because of this proliferation of community platforms, which do that work. So you just subscribe to a platform, and then the platform moves that data to the other party in the supply chain. Again, democratization. Now coming to deep tech, and you wanted to hear about drones, right? We all have heard about drones in logistics doing last mile delivery, and trust me, Timur, as we move forward, the payloads are going to increase. And you were talking about Central Asia, you were talking about remote places, and delivering to remote places, etc. If this tool evolves, there is a part of an answer to your problem, logistical problem of Central Asia region stays there. But before that happens, drones have other usages. So small e-commerce, last mile deliveries, but drones are also being used in warehouses. So in one of the airport cargo warehouse in India, drones are being used, and there are two purposes. One is obviously to do inventory, because you have multi-rack warehouses, and then to take inventory, somebody has to go to that level, scan the location code, scan the barcodes on the packages, etc. It's not easy, right? But when you have drones with cameras, they can do this work, and then you have inventory taken up, right? Secondly, places where there are pilferages, right? If you have these drones in the warehouses, they act as a deterrent, because then people know that somebody is watching you, right? So that's the thing around drones. Talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. Well, just this intelligent scheduling of trucks at the airports or ports. So that let's say a DHL truck taking cargo from Almaty to let's say Paris comes on a specific day, and it typically takes 35 minutes to unload. So when you're doing intelligent scheduling, your system learns over a period of time. Oh, okay, this is how much time this truck is going to take. So now I need to schedule the docks accordingly, right? The second example is again, this whole thing around RPA, or robotic process automation, wherein we're talking about, PDF documents being converted into electronic data, because OCR tools can scan those. Machine learning can identify mistakes which can be corrected, and then a document can actually get converted into electronic data. So those are different use cases of deep tech that exist. And in terms of Internet of Things, you obviously have geofencing, so that, when you have trucks entering in the warehouse periphery, you can automatically assign a dock to the truck. So, that's part of IoT, more or less like what, Uber does. And then the second one is pharmaceutical temperature tracking, because a pharmaceutical at wrong temperature may mean, difference between life and death. So it's important to measure the quality of temperature and temperature variations. And then you can integrate that with, warehouse management systems or community platforms and provide that visibility to the others. So those are, some of the deep tech use cases that we have, which are taking shape.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amar. Thank you. This was very valuable. I would like to go back to the big picture, and I would like to ask to address a question to Antonio or Tatiana, if she's here with us. Antonio, is Tatiana here?
No, Tatiana had to go, unfortunately.
Okay. Then we have you, Antonio. Hello, Antonio. Thanks very much for being with us. Antonio, I have a question. Thanks to the World Bank, in Kazakhstan, logistics is becoming very popular. So, for example, some people said, logistics is not important, and then it takes you one ship in the Suez Canal, and then everyone feels how logistics is important, right? So, from the World Bank point of view, what do you see the future for logistics in Central Asia? And second thing, Russia is promoting this Arctic Passage or North Arctic Passage. So where the World Bank stands on this, please.
Thank you, Timur, and thank you all for inviting me for this panel. First of all, I would like to say that we see very large potential for logistics improvements in Central Asia, for further development of logistics across the countries in Central Asia, across the sectors, there are many elements of the logistics. I think that the panelists, the keynote speakers have touched on many of these elements already. But one key element is, of course, infrastructure. And all the countries in Central Asia have been investing large amounts of money in infrastructure. And this is very important to highlight. But it's also important to remember that, as Tatiana pointed out during her presentation, that infrastructure alone will not bring all the expected results. We need efficient systems overall, and these include efficient logistics. So how do we move between moving, trains and trucks from A to B to integrated systems in which we can consolidate freight? We can, as Amar pointed out, we can dissociate the freight from the information about the freight. They don't need to travel together, and they don't need to travel in paper form. So these elements are very important. All of the international financial institutions, beyond the pure infrastructure aspects, they also focus on making trades more efficient and make sure that the logistics systems are developed as a support to trade and not in isolation. Going more to your question about the corridors and the larger connectivity, I think that's another important aspect to emphasize, is that there are many competing initiatives related to development of infrastructure and prioritization of investments in Central Asia. So there are elements such as the BRI, the CAREC, the initiatives from the EU, bilateral initiatives from many countries. Each of the countries in Central Asia has also its own master plan or priority plan for investments. So there are many layers of prioritization and plans. And I think what's important for each of the countries and for Central Asia as a region is to make sure there is a clear prioritization of these investments to avoid investing in competing infrastructure. So we will not be able to have each country supporting many corridors to connect China to Europe. It doesn't make sense as a system. So how do we make sure that we rationalize, that we promote infrastructure that deliver results to the countries and also deliver the support that the business, the trade needs to operate in an efficient way. So I think that's the key question for us in terms of combining the infrastructure investment, the needs for trade, which will evolve in the future, right? We all expect that the trade in 30 years from now will be very different from what we have now. So are we building the infrastructure for the trade that we have now, or for the trade that we plan to have in the future? So this is a question: how we make sure that we are not building a system that will be obsolete in 5-10 years from now. So these are, in my view, the main questions. I know that I'm asking more questions than providing answers, but I think these are key elements as we build our dialogues with the private sector, the business, with the public, the government, the decision makers, and make sure that we all have a shared understanding of the way to tackle these issues together. So let me stop here, and I'm happy to follow up later.
Daniel, thank you so much. Thanks very much. It was very interesting insight. I would like to invite David Cross to the floor. And I have a question for David. David, before we start, I would like to give a brief introduction on you. David Cross is an intermodal professional who has been involved in all aspects of this sector since 1978. He has grown up with containerization. He has experience of working in and running offices concerned with liner shipping, port management, rail operations, and most recently with consultancy alignments, as well as working in the UK. He has extensive overseas experience, having worked and lived in Singapore, Malta, Dubai, and South Africa, and has worked for P&O, Deutsche Bahn, CMA CGM, as well as being a former managing director of Tilbury Container Services. In more recent years, David has been involved in the development of the China-Europe rail services and the development of inland hinterland container terminals in the UK. David, welcome. I have a question. It's also a big picture, global one. Picking up on the digitalization and infrastructure connect, how can digital technologies boost greener trade and low or no carbon supply chains? Please. Joachim.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm very, very pleased to be here. I thought the presentations were great and very interesting. Specifically in answer to the question, and I think Amar would possibly agree with this, in a big country, Kazakhstan, specifically Central Asia as a group, the important point is, in my view, not to centralize everything. In India, for example, in the early days, most of the freight went through Mumbai, a little bit to Calcutta, but then gradually the inland depot in Delhi was progressed, probably 20 more years ago now, and a number of other inland sites came up, and that does two things. It takes away huge peaks. In this conference this morning, we've talked about delays, we've talked about unnecessary delays, we've talked about congestion, and if you like get away from the old model, which was years and years ago, everything came to a port because that's where the ships came to, and that was rather essential and rather obvious. But over the years, in this country here in the UK, they were called inland clearance depots and so on. If you like, the amount of freight coming to a central point, it doesn't have to be a port, it could be one big city in a landlocked country, was diluted, if you like. So if 100% comes into the country, perhaps 20% would go to inland clearance depot in City A, another 20% would go to City B with another inland clearance depot, and all that reduces the delays. It reduces the sort of the potential for things to go wrong. And I think in terms of growing logistics in Central Asia, it is a big area. There are big countries, and I think the other advantage, if you do sort of dilute it a bit, is that often, and it's still happening here in the UK this year, we opened a very large inland depot in Yorkshire, which is towards the north of England, year before last, and the benefits to the local area are huge. The sort of regeneration aspects of it, and it may only be tire fitters and tire shops and places for guys to eat and to stay, but the whole logistics position is improved. A, because delay is reduced. B, because when you move freight that hasn't, or international freight that's come from other countries that hasn't perhaps been to such places in the past, then you get buy-in from the local people who like it. It helps the regions of the country. So I think there's important point there, just to, as we do emerge and develop, not to focus on one place. The people in the central point might want to focus in one place. Governments sometimes want to do that, but actually the best way of doing it is to dilute it. And the best way to make that work, and back to the question, I'm sorry, is to improve our digitalization of the movement of freight. And again, I don't think on that subject we need to start with a completely clean page. We can, blockchain, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it has made a difference. And there are other competing systems, if you like blockchain out there that do help move data around. And I do think that to perhaps take the best from what has happened in other parts of the world may be easier. We don't have to take it per se, but we can sort of refine it, we can develop it, we can make it appropriate to the particular place or country we want to deliver it in. And so those things together, harnessing the growth of digitalization, and perhaps, I think importantly, big countries and big areas, the idea of moving things away from one particular port to several inland ports, minor ports, satellite ports, call them what you will, actually would be, if like a sort of a refinement of the big picture in the theatre that we're talking about, and would lead to better physical connectivity and better infrastructure, because there would be shared across the country.
Wow, I see. And then here comes the question of the keeping it all under control, having it all decentralized, but at the same time, you have to make sure that each party has an access to the same level of information simultaneously at the same time, right? Amar,
Yep.
Would you agree?
Yes, and another benefit of using rail transport, I'm a big fan of rail transport, particularly electrified rail over long distance, because it fits with the carbon reduction agenda as well. But generally with rail transport, you know what's coming towards you perhaps 5 days or a week in advance. Yeah, and I think that's important as well. I mean, the new railway in Kazakh between Alakol and Dostiek, this is a brand new railway which will help, link wider regional countries. But it's also good for Kazakhstan, because rail transport, in a modern container train, it might be 60 or more containers, you know what's coming towards you perhaps 4 or 5 days in advance. So in terms of clearance, in terms of alerting customers to know what's coming, everyone, and there's no excuse, everyone's got perhaps 3 or 4 days to prepare for the arrival of the freight, to get the documents in order. And I agree completely with what was said before. The idea that we have 26 documents all with the same information on them to get freight from one place to another in 2021 is actually needs some attention. Yeah? But I mean, those things together, I think, will help as well as we progress into 2022 and beyond.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, David. I would like to ask next question. about the pandemic. Khalizan, we have a guest from Malaysia, Khalizan bin Mohammed Khalid. I would like to introduce him. Khalizan is an accountant with over 30 years of experience in finance, accounting, and IT. He was involved with large privatization projects and large consultancy projects. Khalizan, in your view, do you think the pandemic forced the world globally, businesses to speed up and upgrade their approach in automation and contactless technologies? Please.
Yes, thank you, Timor. May I share my screen?
Yes, please.
First of all, the World Economic Forum has stated in a recent report that the logistic industry has not been as fast as other industries in the digitalization efforts. So this is stated by the World Economic Forum themselves, and they say that the logistic industry has about 2 trillion at stake if it does not step up its efforts in digitalization. The big players in logistics are themselves at risk. So not only the small players, but the big players. So this point has been addressed in my discussions with John Harris prior to this forum. So for those who would like to know further about that, can refer back to the interview. Coming back to Timor's question just now on the post-COVID world, can you see my screen? The supply chains of the world is at the moment in a very uncertain situation, okay, because of COVID. And the question that we need to ask ourselves at this juncture is whether the world will return to what we knew it was before COVID happened. So the important thing here to note is that there is a lack of consensus amongst governments of the world. So you could see one country running north, another country running south, another country running east, another country running west. It's very important that the governments of the world get together and discuss and come up with a few scenarios. What's likely to happen in 2022? What's the state that we are going to be in the middle of 2022, 2023? Come up with a few scenarios. What if there is a new mutant, for example, the mu mutant? Now we are facing the Delta mutant. What if the mu mutant will come out, for example? What are the characteristics of this mutation and how will it affect our supply chain? Because this will affect the logistics industry. Now, what has happened to us in terms of the COVID? There's been disruptions to supply chain. There's been lockdowns. There's been border controls set up, not allowing people to move in borders. People cannot go to factories and cannot examine, for example, the products that's been produced for them. There's new consumption patterns, new supply patterns coming up in terms of supply of medicals, including vaccines, protective materials, PPE, mask, pharmaceuticals, and food. People are hoarding food, household products, and industrial products like industrial chemicals and raw materials are also facing this sort of new patterns in response to the disruption to supply chains. And people have swapped suppliers from one place to another. This happened, for example, when COVID first hit the world in a big way. Wuhan was closed down, and then there's as we remember, there was a shortage of face mask, shortage of toilet paper. So there's also protectionism going on, where countries with available enough resources of these sort of things does not want to sell them to other countries because they need to use it themselves. So because of all this, there's a reconfiguration of logistics. And when there's a reconfiguration of logistics that has to happen fast, because supply chains cannot be stopped, because people need to have these goods. This could be your household goods, this could be your essential items, or this could even be food and medication, for example. So in order to continue the uninterrupted pattern of living in a normal world as we do have, logistics had to be reconfigured in terms of swapping, for example, from passenger plane cargo to use shipping modes of, and that involved assigning different warehouses, for example. And then there was a lot of just-in-time manufacturing last time that had to go to to move into creating buffer stocks to prevent further disruption should there more uncertainties come up. So because of all this, the industry has been forced to move faster in terms of digitalization. However, the problem with digitalization is that the logistic scenario ecosystem is a very complex ecosystem. We are bringing real products. This is not an idea in the sky. It is real products that got to reach real people in real time. So any mistake is real. Okay, it cannot be covered by anything. If your product does not arrive, it does not arrive. And there are a lot of players in this environment. Different people has different state of readiness. Okay, especially for example for Central Asia. Even though Central Asia is made up of only 5 countries, but there are differences in approaches, in the alignment of thoughts. So with different players being in a different set or state of readiness, in a very large and complex ecosystem dealing with real things, so there has to be some form of coordination and alignment involved, and this is very important for Central Asia. Now, the good thing about Central Asia is that if you were to imagine the whole Earth being made up of 2 significant parts, one part are some islands called the Americas. So they are on the other side of the sea. Now, the other part is the Asia, and Asia is connected to Europe over here, and there's a tail end down there called Africa, and this whole thing is connected by land. And smack in the middle of that mess of land is Central Asia. And this has been recognized since the days of Marco Polo. And even today, it's been recognized as part of the Belts and Roads Initiative of China. So this whole place here controls, for example, 40% of the world reserve in fuel, uranium, a lot of mineral, and there's huge farming land that could be used to produce food. Not only that, but there's ready market for them. For example, I'm from Malaysia. For Malaysia to sell products to Europe, we have to turn all the way around to Suez Canal and come out the other way. But Central Asia is smack in the middle. You are within easy reach to Europe, easy reach to Africa down there, or you can go down to China, which is already a ready market willing to buy from you. And there's also Russia. So smack in the middle. So that is really should capitalize on this and coordinate the countries themselves so that everybody is moving in an aligned direction for digital effort. That will propel the digitalization of Central Asia.
Dear Khalizan, can I ask a question? Would you be so kind to share these materials with John or with me, because we would like them to be available for the participants?
Yes, this material was covered in my interview with John prior
Video,
to the
right?
session.
Yes,
In
yes.
the video. So
But
if you listen,
in the form of slides, pages.
can. I'll send it to John.
Please.
John has a copy. He can send it over to the rest of the participants.
Yes, we will ask John to share with us. Dear Halizan, actually this session draws to a close. I have noticed that Mario Apostolov has raised the hand, and I believe he has a question. Mario, could you type it? Or no open questions, right? Because your question was answered by Amar. Okay, we have got slightly over than 3 minutes left, which I would like to use to summarize. So I would like to ask all of you a final word from each of you in just one sentence. Please, could you tell what does the digital future look like in the transport and logistics sector in your view, please? David.
Essential, an opportunity, yeah, very, very much part of where logistics has to go in the next 3 to 5 years. It's particularly rail transport has lagged behind in terms of digitalization, and now we must move on, get it done, and provide a much better service to our customers, and allowing rail to offer carbon-free, long-distance logistics solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Amar, what do you think?
So clearly, Timur, I think digital infrastructure is as much necessary for logistics as the physical infrastructure. And we have so far not given enough attention to setting up of this digital infrastructure. I think that's where the future lies for logistics. And each adversity brings an opportunity. Pandemic has given us great opportunity to digitize. Let's not waste it, and let's create a more efficient, sustainable, and transparent logistics value chain through digitization. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Amar. Antonio, World Bank has invested enormous, amounts of money into the creating physical infrastructure. How would you answer this question? What does the future look for transport and logistics, in your view?
Thank you. Again, as others said before me, I think digitalization and in particular the contribution of digitalization in the logistics sector and how this can support the development of trade from and to Central Asia represents a huge opportunity for Central Asia to integrate globally. I think this is the opportunity, is how Central Asia can become part of a global market. We have seen from the graphs that were presented that the connectivity, the physical connectivity in the region is very limited. How the digital connectivity can support the development of the trade chains and make sure that the Central Asia countries can trade globally in better terms.
Yeah, thank you. Konstantin.
Yeah, so if choosing such a short title for digital logistics in the future, I would call it let's say, frictionless, invisible, continuous communication between logistic operators, logistic players, and different customers and partners of them. Yeah, just by invisible, I mean throughout a number of channels, like platforms, IoT, and so on.
Thank you so much. Mario has made a comment that the problem with digitalization is that efforts are fragmented, and they have just finalized the package of UN standards for the digitalization of multimodal transport data and document exchange, which can be very useful. So I will ask maybe the organizers to upload the set of the documents. Then with that, I would like to thank all the panelists and all the attendees, all the people who were here today. I would like to thank the interpreters for their hard work. I would like to thank the technical support. And first of all, I would like to thank John, because thanks to John, this session went seamlessly. John, thank you very much. I know you're invisible, but you can hear us and see us. And I think we could have gone much longer, but this is a set time. I think we all have to draw to a close. And I look forward to seeing you all again in the future. And I hope maybe next time this session will be physical plus digital together. Thanks so much. Good luck. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Спасибо, до свидания.
До свидания.